Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to reach 10K subscriber, and let's aim for 5K likes on this video. It might seem hard, but I trust you can make it happen. Now, let's begin. The series begins with Shin racing on the road with another person. Although it's not an official race, just a competition between them, he takes it seriously until his car flips over. He's rushed to the hospital, and we see his twin sister, Shin, outside the operating room, worried about him. She tells herself that the next day is the press conference for her brother Shin joining the racing team. It has always been her brother's lifelong dream to enter the race and become a professional driver, and if he doesn't attend this conference, the opportunity will be lost. That's why she decides to cut her hair, disguise herself as a boy, and attend the press conference in his place. At the conference, we see the team manager welcoming the new members, and then Joe enters, attracting a lot of attention from the girls because of his handsome looks. When it's Shin's turn, we see his twin sister Shin entering disguised as a boy. While she's being introduced, she almost falls, but Joe grabs her by her clothes and warns her in a low voice not to ruin the conference, or he'll kick her off the team. Afterwards, we see them in the dorm room where they'll be staying during the training camp. Shin feels uncomfortable because sharing a room with him isn't an easy situation for her since she's a girl, but she can't object. She goes to sleep on her bed without even changing her clothes. Before falling asleep, she talks to herself and wishes that her brother Shin would wake up from his coma and participate in the race. The next day, when Shin wakes up, she finds herself sleeping next to Joe on the bed and doesn't understand how she ended up there. She quietly slips away from him so he doesn't wake up and quickly returns to her own bed. At the same time, their teammate calls them from outside and wakes them up, so Shin pretends that she was sleeping in her own bed the whole time. But Joe tells her that she had nightmares last night, was bothering him, and ended up sleeping in his bed. That day, Joe goes to his grandfather's house because he summoned him. His grandfather tells him that he has decided to bequeath his group of companies to him and make him the CEO. But Joe tells him that he doesn't want that and prefers to be a race car driver because that's his dream. He suggests that all the shares go to his older brother Chang, since he's been working with their grandfather for years and would be better at managing the companies. However, his grandfather tells him that he doesn't trust Chang and warns him that he must agree to his decision, otherwise he'll disinherit him completely and no longer consider him part of the family. But Joe insists that this is his decision and leaves. Meanwhile, we learn that his brother Chang was eavesdropping on them from inside the house and heard what his grandfather said about him. He looks very upset and angry because his grandfather always favors Joe over him. He tells himself that Joe has left him no choice but to destroy him and get him out of the way. We then go to the first day of training for the new team members. Coach Yu talks to them and tells them that the team's entry tests won't be easy, and the new members will be filtered down to 4 who will participate in the race. Those who fail the tests will not join the team. Therefore, each of them must put in maximum effort and endure the training if they want to secure a place on the team. And indeed, after that, they start the exercises, and each of them does their best. A few days later, Joe tells Shin that she has many driving skills, but it's obvious that her body is weak and thin. It's really noticeable. Even Coach Yu asks her to bulk up a bit and be more like the guys. So Shin tries to do that, but while she's training with Joe, she collapses from exhaustion. Joe quickly helps her up, checks on her, and takes her with him to treat her wound. At that moment, Shin looks at him, happy with his concern for her. At the same time, their 2 teammates see them. They are surprised by Joe's concern for Shin and comment that it's strange for guys to be so interested in each other like that. But then the team manager intervenes because she heard them and asks them to focus on the training and stop making silly remarks. In the following days, Shin continues to train with Joe so she can build adequate physical fitness for the test. Joe notices how determined and resolute she is to be on the team. On the day of the fitness tests, Shin puts in great effort to prove herself. Then comes the moment of announcing the test results. Coach Yu announces the names of the 4 accepted into the team. The first one is, of course, Joe, and the other 2 are Fong and Fei, and the last one is Shin. Shin is happy and spontaneously hugs Joe, overjoyed that she has joined the team. Afterwards, the team manager Lee congratulates them and takes them to show the racing car. At that moment, a person named Duan appears, who is with Chang, Joe's brother. Chang talks to Lee and tells her that he's just visiting his brother and nothing more. He tells them that Duan will participate this year in the special team of their group of companies. He then talks to his brother Joe and reminds him that because of him, last year Duan didn't participate in the race because he suffered an injury that Joe was responsible for. But this year, he will participate, and Chang warns him to be careful so that it doesn't happen again. It's clear how much Chang hates his brother, even though he pretends to wish him good luck in the race against Duan. After they leave, Joe is visibly affected by his guilt. He leaves them, gets into the racing car, and drives it while remembering the accident that happened 2 years ago, in which Duan was injured. At that moment, we see the team manager Lee talking to Shin and telling her about the accident that happened and how much Joe suffered a major psychological crisis afterward because of his guilt. Shin tells her that Josie loves him and has to stand by him and help him so he can be okay. That's her role. At the end of the day, she talks to Joe and tells him that she's confident in his skills and abilities, that she feels they have a great chance because he's with them on the team, and she tries to get him out of the state he's in and comfort him. The next day, when Joe wakes up, he finds Shin preparing breakfast for him and taking very good care of him. He goes into the bathroom, washes his face, and talks to her while she's outside. He tells her that if she were a girl, he would propose marriage to her. Shin is happy when she hears him say that. Later that day, we see the team manager watching. Joe's performance in training is very poor, and it's obvious that he's not focused, so she goes to talk to him and scolds him because his evaluation is very bad, and he needs to focus on the training to make progress. Joe gets upset, and it's clear that he still can't get over his guilt since he saw the diary the day before. At night, he walks alone, remembering the incident, and doesn't know how to deal with his guilt. When he goes to cross the street, a car comes toward him, and he stands frozen in front of it. But suddenly, Shin pulls him away from the car. She reassures him, and Joe tells her that he's fine and walks away. But Shin keeps following him, worried about him. Joe tells her that he's okay now, and there's no need to worry. Shin then tells him that they're teammates, and if he wants to confide in her or talk, she's ready to listen. Joe thanks her, takes her with him, and they go back to the room to sleep. The next day, Shin goes out with Joe, and they go to the mall to play games and have fun. She manages to get him out of the state he's in, and they enjoy themselves together. That night in their room, Shin takes advantage of the fact that Joe has gone to shower in the bathroom and goes out to the girls' bathroom in the dorm to shower. But when she comes out, she finds the team manager in front of her, scolding her. The manager warns her that if anyone finds out she's a girl, there will be a scandal. It's clear from her words that she has known from the beginning that Shin is a girl, and she asks her to be careful. Shin tells her there's no need to worry because she's being very cautious. She explains that she's not only taking her brother's place to fulfill his dream, but that she also has her own goal to prove that girls can participate in car races just like boys. Coincidentally, at that moment, her teammate Fang passes by the bathroom door and overhears her saying that she's a girl. He realizes the truth and hides before they come out and see him. After they leave, he comes out and says to himself that now everything is clear and understandable. Later, Fang goes to her room and gives her a breakfast meal he brought from the restaurant. He eats with her, and Joe is surprised by Fang's attention to her. The next day, Fang is very kind to Shin and takes every opportunity to be close to her, which surprises Joe and annoys him. Joe eventually intervenes, takes Shin with him, and pulls her away to leave Fang behind. The next morning, Joe wakes up early and sees Shin sleeping. He notices how soft her skin is and gets close to her while she's sleeping, gently touching her. Shin wakes up and asks why he's so close to her. He pretends that he just wanted to wake her up so they could go have breakfast together, but Shin tells him she's waiting for Fang to bring breakfast to the room, as he does every day. Joe leaves the room and meets Fang, who is on his way to deliver breakfast to her. Joe tells him that Shin has already gone down to train and isn't in her room, preventing him from going in to eat with her. One day, before the local race they will participate in, Shin tries to encourage Joe and cheerfully says that she's at her best and honored to participate with him on the same team. She assures him that she trusts him and that he can rely on her during the race because they are one team. On the day of the race, they both get into their cars and start. There's great cooperation and understanding between them. Shin feels that she has the opportunity to reach the front of the race, and Joe drives his car toward the finish line. Their team wins the race, qualifying them for the media championship of car racing. The next day, they sneak out from behind the hotel to avoid the fans waiting for them and spend a pleasant time together. But then Shin's stomach starts to hurt, so she excuses herself and goes into a supermarket to use the restroom. When she comes out, she doesn't find Joe. We see that Dwan has kidnapped Joe and has his men beat him up. He's angry, accusing Joe of cheating in the race against him. He grabs a baseball bat to hit him, but before he does, Shin arrives, pulls them away from him, and threatens to call the police. Dwan tells them that the matter between them isn't over and leaves the place. Afterwards, in their dorm room, Shin treats Joe's wound, and Joe thanks her. Shin also makes him special noodles to eat. Joe asks her to eat with him because he doesn't like eating alone, so Shin sits down and eats with him from the same plate. Joe then surprises her by telling her that he wants to marry her and that he knew from the beginning that she was a girl. He offers her a wedding ring and waits for her answer. We then see them together, wearing wedding clothes, happy, and Joe feels that his wish has finally come true, that he's found the love of his life. But when he lifts the veil from her face, he finds that she has a mustache, and he's completely startled. At that moment, Joe wakes up from his sleep, startled, and discovers that it was a dream. He's very surprised by the dream and doesn't know what it means, but he feels that it surely has a reason. He gets out of bed and looks at Shin sleeping on her bed. When Shin wakes up from her sleep, Joe quickly gets back into his bed and pretends to be asleep. Shin gets out of her bed and gently covers him with the blanket. However, the dream keeps bothering Joe, so he searches online for ways to find out if a person is a boy or a girl indirectly. At that moment, Shin walks in and startles him, asking what he was watching and why he hid it. She playfully tries to take the iPad from him, and they accidentally kiss, which makes them both flustered. Shin quickly leaves, goes back to her bed, and falls asleep. Of course, Joe's suspicions increase at this point, but he tells himself that it might just be his imagination. The next day, he decides to avoid Shin so that these thoughts won't overwhelm him. Shin notices that he's avoiding her all the time, and even refuses to go out with her and the team to the restaurant, telling her that he's going to sleep early. The following day, Joe doesn't attend training, and Shin asks Coach Yu about him. He tells her that Joe took a leave of absence. Shin feels confused and doesn't understand why he's avoiding her. Later, we see her alone in the room, feeling lonely. It's clear that she misses Joe's presence. That night, Shin finds a gift in her room with a note from an unknown person. The message asks her to wear the dress and shoes inside the box and come to the restaurant at the appointed time. Shin wonders who could know that she's a girl and can only think of one person, Lee, the team manager. Shin assumes that Lee must be the one who invited her to the restaurant. She goes to the restaurant wearing the dress and looking completely like a girl, but to her surprise, Fang is the one waiting for her. He tells her that he's happy she accepted his invitation. He explains that he accidentally found out she was a girl when he overheard her talking to Lee in the bathroom, but he promises her that he won't tell anyone and will keep it a secret. He invites her to sit with him at the table, and Shin agrees. By chance, Joe enters the restaurant. Fang immediately stands up to talk to him, and Shin hides behind him so that Joe won't see her. When Joe realizes that Fang is with a girl, he comments that it's strange because he thought Fang didn't like girls. At that moment, a girl who came with Joe enters the restaurant, and they go to sit at their table. Shin looks disappointed because she believes Joe is interested in another girl. She tells Fang that Joe isn't interested in her and that she now understands why he took a leave of absence, because he's in a relationship with someone else. Feeling frustrated, she drinks a lot, excuses herself, leaves Fang, and walks alone through the street, visibly sad. Meanwhile, we see Joe driving his car, thinking about the girl who was with him in the restaurant earlier. We learn that she's actually a relationship expert and an old friend, not his girlfriend, as Shin thought. The next day, Shin talks to Lee and asks for permission to return to her house instead of staying in the dorm room because she feels uncomfortable. Lee understands her wish and agrees. When Joe returns to the room after his leave of absence, he doesn't find Shin and learns that she has left. Later, in the lounge, Joe wants to talk to her, but doesn't get the chance. He runs into her while she's exercising and asks why she left the room and if he upset her. She replies that it seems she's the one who upset him. Joe tells her that's not true and asks her to come back to the room, but she refuses. Joe stops her and asks her to explain what's bothering her. Shin then tells him that he was the one who started avoiding her first and that it's better if they just remain teammates and stop paying attention to each other from now on. She leaves him and continues running. After that, they each train alone, don't eat together, and don't even greet each other, as if there's a feud between them. At night, we see Joe returning to the room, looking hesitant about whether to message Shin. After some hesitation, he finally writes her a message, but then discovers that she's blocked him. He feels upset. A moment later, his two teammates, Fang and Fei, come in and sit with him. Fei tells him that he's noticed he hasn't been doing well lately, and looks sad, probably because Shin left the room, and they're no longer roommates. Joe tells them that he asked her to come back, but she refused, and even blocked him. Fei suggests that he call her and invite her out to a restaurant, telling him that they're just friends anyway, so there's no reason for them to be fighting. Joe listens to his advice and calls Shin, inviting her to dinner at a restaurant. Shin readily agrees, and they arrange to meet. At the restaurant, they sit at a table, order food, and start eating and drinking together. Joe drinks a lot and then moves to sit next to her. He tells her that he drank because he's happy they've made up, and he begs her to come back to the room, promising that he won't avoid her anymore. He keeps insisting, leaning close to her, and at that same moment, outside the restaurant, we see an unknown person secretly photographing them while they're sitting so close together. Afterward, Shin takes Joe back to the dorm room, supporting him because he's drunk, and helps him to bed. She's surprised when he tells her that he loves her and that he doesn't understand why he's so attached to her. He holds her hand while half asleep and says that he wishes she were a girl so he could marry her. At that moment, Shin thinks to herself that she also wishes he knew she was a girl, but it's difficult for her to tell him. The next day, when Joe wakes up, he finds her sleeping on her bed. He gently covers her with a blanket and watches her for a moment as she sleeps. Shin wakes up and asks him to give her the money for the restaurant bill she paid after he got drunk. She tells him that she carried him back to the room and went through a lot of trouble. Joe sits next to her and apologizes, telling her not to be upset. He then makes her a special breakfast and tells her that he'll make her breakfast every day now that they're roommates again. Meanwhile, we see Chang looking at the photos that Duan gave him, and we learn that Duan was the one outside the restaurant photographing them. Chang tells Duan that he'll use these photos to get revenge on his brother because the pictures are incriminating and could cause a scandal if they're published. Later that same day, after practice, Shin goes with Joe to the changing room. She goes into a cubicle to change her clothes while he waits outside. However, Joe leaves for a moment to get something, and during that time, Shin, thinking he's still outside, starts talking to him through the door. She decides to confess to him that she's actually a girl, not a boy. She explains that she disguised herself as a boy to fulfill her brother's dream and prove that girls can also participate in car races. At that moment, Joe returns after getting a towel and overhears only the end of her explanation, the part where she says that she wants their team to win so she can prove herself. He replies that he knows and that he's confident in her abilities. Shin misunderstands his words and thinks that he means he already knew she was a girl and accepts her as she is. A misunderstanding occurs because Joe didn't hear the first part of her confession that she's actually a girl. Later that day, while she's sitting with the team manager Lee, Shin tells her what happened and says that since Joe wasn't upset with her, it proves that he loves her. But Lee doesn't believe it and tells her not to jump to conclusions. Shin admits that she felt jealous when she saw him with the other girl at the restaurant. Lee tells her there's no need to think that way and takes her somewhere, saying she has a surprise for her. She leads her there with her eyes closed, and when Shin opens her eyes, she's surprised to see all the team members throwing her a surprise party for her birthday. They perform a dance for her, and Shin feels happy and emotional when Joe comes out holding the cake. He lets her blow out the candle and make a wish. Joe then gives her a bracelet as a gift. She puts it on her wrist, and he tells her that he'll wear a similar bracelet on his wrist and will never take it off. Shin feels very happy at that moment and thanks him for the precious gift. But the next day, when Shin returns to her dorm room, she doesn't find Joe there. Her teammate Fang comes in and tells her that Joe withdrew from the team that day without explaining the reason, and no one knows why he did that. Shin is shocked and leaves the room quickly. Later that night, we see her sitting with Lee, crying and wanting to know the reason why Joe withdrew from the team. Lee promises her that she'll talk to him the next day and find out the reason. Shin tries to convince herself that Joe isn't avoiding her, but deep down, she still believes that he left because of her, and it breaks her heart. At the same time, Joe is standing nearby, watching them and listening to Shin's words, and it's clear that he's deeply affected. We learn that he did this because he received a message on his phone from an unknown person containing photos of him being close to Shin at the restaurant. The sender threatened that if he didn't withdraw from the team, They would publish the pictures and cause a scandal for everyone. Because of this, Joe decided to withdraw from the team and sacrifice himself so that the other members, especially Shin, wouldn't be harmed. The next day, Lee goes to talk to him along with Fang and Fei, wanting an explanation for what happened. Joe shows them the photos on his phone and explains that he was forced to withdraw to avoid a scandal and did it to protect the team's reputation. They understand his decision. The following day, Joe is forced to hold a press conference. Journalists question him about the reason for his withdrawal and whether it has anything to do with his feelings of guilt over the accident he caused 2 years ago. At that moment, Joe can't speak or explain anything until one of the journalists, who is secretly working with his brother Chang, asks if he withdrew because of a romantic relationship with someone on the team. Everyone is shocked by the question, and Joe still can't say a word. But suddenly, Shin enters the press conference, standing confidently in front of everyone while dressed as a girl. She tells them that she is Shin's twin sister and that she had been pretending to be a boy all this time. The journalists become excited and start asking if what she did counts as cheating. The team manager, Lee, steps in and explains that she knew Shin was a girl from the beginning and that they hid it for one purpose, to prove that girls can also compete in car racing. She assures everyone that they will continue to participate in the championship, and with her words, she manages to turn the situation in their favor. The audience at the conference applauds her courage and honesty. However, Joe's reaction is different. He becomes angry and confesses that Shin deceived him. He leaves the conference, goes to the garage, takes off the bracelet on his wrist, throws it away, gets into his car, and drives off. Shin runs after him, calling out his name, but he drives away. She then notices his bracelet lying on the ground. She picks it up and feels heartbroken because he had promised never to take it off. Later, Joe returns to confront her. He gets out of his car and angrily asks why she's crying when he's the one who was deceived. He yells at her, demanding to know why she lied to him. He calls her a liar and cruelly tells her that girls' clothes don't suit her at all. Then he walks away, leaving Shin in tears, completely devastated. The next day, we see Fang talking to Joe. He tells him that he was once attracted to Shin when he discovered she was a girl, but when she told him she loved Joe, he let go of the idea. He assures Joe that Shin truly loved him and was deeply attached to him. He also admits that he once suspected she was a girl, but thought it was just his imagination. Now he understands why Joe's heart was always drawn to her. Fang advises him to follow his feelings and confess his love if he truly loves her. That same day, at a restaurant, Fang invites Shin to meet him and confesses that he's been attracted to her ever since he found out she was a girl. Shin thanks him for his honesty, but gently tells him that she can't return his feelings because her heart belongs to Joe. Fang smiles and says he already knows that he didn't expect her to love him back. He just wanted to be honest. He tells her he understands her feelings and advises her to reconcile with Joe and not be stubborn. That night, Joe goes back to the parking garage and searches for the bracelet he threw away, but unfortunately, he doesn't find it. He gets into his car, upset that he lost it, even though he had promised Shin he would never take it off. He doesn't know that Shin had already found it and kept it. The following night, Joe sits at a restaurant table, waiting for Lee, who had asked him to meet her there to talk. He starts to get impatient when she doesn't show up, but then he's surprised to see Shin arriving instead. They sit together, and Shin apologizes for hiding from him that she was a girl. She also tells him that she found his bracelet and returns it to him, saying he can wear it again if he wants. She gives him a letter and tells him to read it after she leaves, and that he can respond afterward. Joe takes the letter, but opens it immediately to read it. At that moment, Shin stops him, embarrassed, and tells him not to read it now. Then Joe pulls her into his arms and apologizes to her. He tells her that he should have understood her situation and not yelled at her. He asks if she'll forgive him. Shin smiles and agrees, and they hug each other tightly, both of them happy and relieved. After that, Shin and Joe become closer and spend more time together. A few days later, Joe's grandfather falls ill and is taken to the hospital. Joe arrives and learns from his grandfather's assistant that his grandfather had a heart condition and had been hiding it from everyone. His brother Chang then tells him not to worry because he will take over the management of the group of companies from now on. Chang leaves, and we then see him in a meeting with the investors, telling them that their grandfather is practically incapacitated and that it would be best to nominate Chang to take over his grandfather's position. He decides that they will hold a meeting the next day to vote. That night, Shin waits for Joe outside the dorm. When he arrives, she asks him about his grandfather's health. He replies that his grandfather's condition is serious. He sits with her and tells her about Chang's decision, explaining that he must confront him, but this might cause him to miss the race in 2 days because he needs to stay close to his grandfather and help him during this crisis. Shin understands and assures him that she will do her best in the race. She is confident that they will win because of all the effort they have put in. Joe reassures her that he is also confident. With her abilities, even without anyone's help, Shin knows she can achieve her dream and prove that girls can participate in car racing. The next day, at Chang's meeting with the investors, a vote is held, and they all agree to nominate him to manage the company. But before the announcement of his appointment, they are surprised by Joe entering the room. Chang tells him that he came at the right time and will witness the announcement of his appointment. At that moment, however, their grandfather enters the meeting room after being discharged from the hospital. He asks the investors if they want to vote for Chang, and they immediately refuse and leave the room. He then speaks privately with Chang, telling him that because of his actions, he doesn't deserve to be his grandson or inherit from him. He explains that he doesn't hate Chang, but his selfish personality prevents him from being trusted. Before Chang leaves, their grandfather stops him, approaches him, and gives him a file. He informs him that he has transferred shares of one of the company's branches to Chang's ownership. He tells him that this is an opportunity to prove himself and hopes he will live up to the trust, not disappointing him like he has in the past. Chang takes the file, shocked, as his grandfather leaves. Later that night, Shin returns home and feels as if someone is following her. Duan appears with his men, surrounding her in an attempt to kidnap her. At the same time, Joe receives a message from Duan, informing him that Shin has been kidnapped and providing a location if he wants to save her. Without hesitation, Joe rushes to the location and finds a warehouse. He enters and finds Shin tied to a chair. As Joe moves toward her, he realizes it is a trap. Duan's men violently attack Joe, while Shin cries hysterically. Duan stops them from hitting her and tells Joe that it's time to pay for past grievances. Joe begs him to leave Shin alone, but Duan makes a cruel deal, ordering Joe to kneel under threat that Shin will be harmed if he refuses. Joe is forced to obey. Duan's men grab him, and Duan kicks Joe in the leg, causing him to fall. He then stabs him in the leg to prevent him from participating in the upcoming race and hits him on the head with a baseball bat, knocking him unconscious. However, Duan doesn't realize that Joe had his phone on and had already called the police. The police arrive at the warehouse and begin chasing the attackers. Fang also arrives, finding Shin tied up, and comforts her. An ambulance then takes Joe to the hospital. The next day, Joe follows the race on his phone from the hospital. In the race, Shin drives her car skillfully, reaches first place, and wins, proving to everyone that girls can compete in car racing. After the race, Shin rushes to the hospital and goes to Joe's room. She approaches him and holds his hand, visibly moved. Joe tells her that she should have waited and accepted the prize. Shin cries, saying that she doesn't care about anything but him, and asks if he's in pain. Joe smiles and replies that when she is close to him, he doesn't feel any pain. He wipes away her tears and tells her that she has proven to everyone today that she is a true champion. They embrace. On the same day, Shin goes to her brother Shin's room in the hospital. He is still in a coma, and she talks to him, telling him that she won the race and fulfilled their dream. She holds his hand and reminisces about their memories together. She remembers when they were children, playing racing games with toy cars, and how her brother encouraged her and nurtured her love for racing. She tells him that she met a teammate and fell in love with him, and she hopes that one day they will be on the same racing team. A year later, we see Shin and Joe together on the beach, happy and in a loving relationship. Joe surprises her with a marriage proposal, and Shin joyfully accepts. The series ends with them driving 2 cars together on the racetrack as husband and wife, celebrating their love and their shared passion for racing. And thus, the series ends. I hope that if you have reached the end, you will subscribe to the channel and support us with a like. You can also check out other series that you might enjoy. We have many beautiful ones, and I can recommend the best for you, dear viewer. Thank you, and peace.